Well, hey, everybody, we're glad to be back for another edition of the Grip Wild Men Who Matter podcast. Hey, we're going to throw a few different things at you today, but we're going to dive into some pretty serious thoughts as always. It is what it is, guys. We're trying to challenge you. But my wife told me that I couldn't come in again introducing Brandon like I always do. So I'm actually calling her right now and see how she wants to do it right here live on air. Let's see what happens.
Hi, Buffet.
Hey, babe. So recording a podcast live right now. You told us we couldn't intro like we normally do. So we decided we were going to do something a little bit different. We're going to bring you live on it and see how you want to intro. So you own anything you want to say to lead us off, because apparently we can't lead off like we have been.
Oh, well, I think it's such an honor that you would call me, so thank you so much.
How you want to introduce Brandon today?
Today, I think it's my honor and my privilege to introduce with simplicity and complexity, Brandon Broach.
She's all serious and stuff.
Thank you.
What do you
Steph.
think about that? What do you think about that, B?
Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you. I feel very honored and
you
welcome.
just can't say as always.
So apparently, my wife has brought to the attention that I always say, as always, Brandon Broach. So we're not doing that today. Well, maybe we'll find out if everybody liked your intro of Brandon. We'll do a poll.
You don't have to put it anyway.
Oh no, it's happening. We're gonna do a poll whether or not they liked yours, as you said, simplistic introduction, or my never know what you're gonna get intro of Brandon. I love you, babe. We're gonna cut you. We're gonna dive in. See ya.
Bye.
But again, that was my wife, Stephanie. Love her. She's always challenging us just to be better at what we do. So I appreciate her. Love you, babe. But Brandon, how you doing today, man?
Steve, it's good, man. It is finally a few days of dry weather in Alabama. It quit raining. Temperature's up a little bit. It's starting to act like spring. At least my allergies are acting like it's springtime. I was out in the woods the other day, and after I had sat for a little while, I realized, man, my boots are turning yellow because I was sitting up under a pine tree. So it's definitely springtime. The pollen is out.
Oh, I was fixing to say, what does that mean? The boot turning yellow because you're under a pine tree. But the pollen was on him.
Yeah, man.
I was starting to think, man, Brandon knows something about springtime, like climate, or
No.
that I don't know.
No, don't give me too
about.
much credit.
So,
don't give me
yeah.
too much credit.
Well, look, guys, before we dive in today, we've got some good stuff. We feel like we got a subject today that, man, I think will really hit home. But before we do that, I was at the Bassmasters Classic this past week working for Strike King, who's, loved on me for a long time in my career, and have a great relationship with them and love hanging out with the Strike King company. But Strike King is part of a family of Lew's Fishing and Hunter Specialties. And just chatting with the guys at Hunter Specialties at the Classic, they've been listening to the podcast, enjoying it. But they are throwing in some stuff for us to give away to the guys, to people on the podcast. And so, man, very grateful for that. And what we're going to do is we're going to give away an Undertaker turkey vest, a Sling Blade box call, and a cookie cutter pan call.
Man, that's basically everything you need to get out in the woods and get after them right there.
Oh, absolutely. And it's all kind of their top shelf stuff, and grateful for that. But so here's how we're going to do it. I think here you tell me. I think what we'll do, because what we really value, guys, and what really helps us is, one, having subscribers. That helps us just get the word out. It puts us in position in the whole world of algorithm, which is a big word for people seeing our podcast when you go to the Apple deal, or but mainly we value what you think about it. We value your reviews, and we value your stars, because it helps us understand what we're doing right and what we need to improve on. It helps encourage us that look, we're heading in a great direction. We're helping people. So I think what we're going to do is if you'll go subscribe to the podcast, but if you've been listening and you've been enjoying it, leave us some kind of review. Hey, look, we appreciate the good, bad, and ugly. Just tell us what you really think about. Shoot us a star ranking, and jot us a review down there if you have time. But just we want to know what you think. And if you'll leave us a review this week on our podcast, we're going to draw a name from the reviews. Now, look, the odds are forever in your favor, as they say. What's the movie?
The Hunger Games, I think.
The Hunger Games. The odds are forever in your favor because we're new. So we're not talking about thousands and thousands of reviews here. And so somebody is going to go home with some really cool things. And we're going to turn this pretty fast. In Alabama, we're the season started this past week. Georgia's getting ready to kick off. Tennessee's getting ready to kick off. I don't know where you're at. I mean, the cool thing about the podcast is we looked at some download numbers the other day. And what was the number of states? What was it?
I think it was 23 states.
23 states. So somebody in one of 23 states has downloaded the podcast, which we were super honored and humbled by. But so wherever you're at in the turkey world, your season's probably in or coming in. So we're going to turn this thing pretty fast. So if you're listening to the podcast, if you see, we're going to do a little promotion on all of our social media stuff. If you see it and you're listening to this podcast, hit subscribe. And if you've been listening, shoot us a review. And if you like, and even if you see this on social media and you go and you listen to this podcast, it's your first one, just tell us what you think about it. Because we're going to talk about some stuff today that I think is relevant. And I think will get you going in a really good direction. So subscribe, leave us a review. We're going to draw this, and somebody's getting it. And it's going to be awesome. And thanks again to Hunter Specialties, the guys at Hunter Specialties for throwing that in. And I think it'll be a good little giveaway. So we're going to jump right into the topic. And today we want to really talk about this trap of comparison, this idea of comparison, and where we struggle and how we struggle so often in this day and age with comparison. And I kind of want to lead with the final statement is comparison in your life is toxic. Comparison in your life is a trap. It will consume you. It will destroy you. You will not achieve. You will not go the places you want to go. You will not experience fulfillment in your life if you continue and do get caught up in this trap of comparison. And we all do, Brandon. We are all guilty of it in this world of social media where everybody posts their best. I post my best, right? Here's one thing I see all the time in the duck world. You know, we're all big duck hunters, and everybody's posting when they smash a group of mallards, and you rarely see someone post the woody or the gadwall. I love shooting gadwall. I love shooting woodies. I mean, those are awesome, and so you see the good stuff. You see when it all works out. And I don't know if you're doing filters with your duck pictures to make sure your eyebrows look good, Brandon, but it's very difficult. Or even in business, when you see people achieving, you know, they go from sales manager to VP to president, and you know, like, man, I'm working my tail off too. Or guys driving trucks, or here's one. I see this one, you know, having your, you know, my 19 whatever prized possession flat bottom boat out here that was the first boat I ever fished in. And I talked about in our early podcast about how I became hooked to fishing versus somebody's, you know, Havoc duck boat with a mud motor on it, a $20,000 duck boat. That comparison game, or even in my world of, you know, even when I was fishing professionally, this world of thinking, I've got to have this $55,000 bass boat. I've got to have this big old. You got to have a 250. Everyone else has got a 250 horsepower motor, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the nice stuff, and there's not anything wrong with posting these successful trips that you do on Instagram. But You have to be careful because it's a trap, because you look up and you're comparing and comparing and comparing, and everything that you're doing is not measuring up to what you're seeing out there, and it can become a serious challenge in your life.
Well, I think the real lie here that we're looking at is that, let's face it, there's always an out there that you don't have. There's a bigger, a faster, richer, more successful. Like, there's always a next level. So even when you think you've got it, whatever you're focusing on, you're comparing yourselves to, when you realize when you get there, there's another beyond it. There's always somebody that's got more, that's done it better, that's done it faster. That's just the nature of humanity. And so what happens when we get locked into this comparison trap, when we get locked into, man, look at that over there, I wish I had that, or why don't I have one of those, or why can't I get that? Why can't I win that? Why can't I be that? We stifle our own progress, man. We just get locked down in this paralysis of looking around and wishing that it was different than it was, and we're not actually making progress on this journey that we're on. And I think what comparison really does is it eliminates contentment from the equation. And contentment is a secret to life, man. Being able to be appreciative of where you are, not meaning that you settle and you give up the journey, you give up the drive, but understanding, man, I may not be where I want to be, but I'm not where I used to be.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm making progress. I may not be that position I've been gunning for, but man, I'm not the guy at the bottom anymore. And when you lose sight of where you've been, how far you've come, what you've overcome in your life, because you start to compare where everyone else is, you lose sight of, man, what it's like just to be in the moment, and all the joy leaves you, and there's no more satisfaction. And that's what we're talking about. Really, you want to be a man that matters, a man of significance. It's learning how to be content with where you are, not giving up on chasing the things that you want, but definitely appreciating the things that you have.
Yeah, absolutely. What jumps in my mind right there is, we always say that, look, God loves you right where you're at. Jesus loves you right where you're at. You don't have to change anything. You don't have to get yourself together. He loves you right where you're at, but he loves you way too much to keep you there. And the world has to know that God loves you right where you're at, but he has so much for you. And I think about that in the world of contentment. Like, if you want to achieve your goals and be successful and experience that fulfillment that we always talk about, you have to get to a place where it is well with my soul where I'm at. Like, I am content with how far I've made it. I am content with where I am, but I am chasing bigger. And I use a great example for me in my own personal life. Like, right now, I'm very content in my life. Is life challenging? Yes. Is there struggle? Yes. Is there stress? Yes. I'm very content. Have I achieved all my goals? No. Am I chasing after some pretty big things? Yes. Am I a dreamer? Yes. I am. There's still a lot for me to achieve, but I am so content where I'm at. And do I want to keep going further? Yes. But man, if I stop and think about where I was 5 years ago, when every day I got up and the person that I saw in the mirror I couldn't stand, every day I got up and I hated who I saw, and it was a loser in the mirror, right? That's how I felt, right? But man, I have come so far in 5 years, and man, I am good where I'm at, but I'm still chasing big things. But it is well with my soul how far I have come, and I think there is so much to be achieved and experienced, inside and out, if you can get to a place where you are content with where you are, knowing that yes, there's still more to be achieved, but I'm not going to compare myself to where they are and where they're going. Yes, I can have mentors and I can have models, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about this world of being consumed by I don't measure up, or being consumed by I'm not as good as that. Man, and honestly, I've struggled with that in my life, especially in the fishing industry, right? Because since I was a child, I wanted to be a professional fisherman. I wanted to be a superstar fisherman. Never even got close to that, right? And I've been in the outdoor industry my entire career. And so there's this battle that I have to be very careful with, that I don't get sucked into, like that I'm not as good as he is. I haven't achieved what he has. I don't have the relationships that he has. I'm not as good a fisherman as he is. And if I'm not careful, then all of a sudden I look up and I'm consumed by comparison. And I lose sight of who I am and where my talents lie and where my achievements lie and the lane that I'm supposed to be running in. And if we're not careful, it's an easy trap. And that's what we're trying to do today. We're trying to get you to think about and be aware of this concept of, man, don't play the comparison game in your pursuit. Don't play the comparison game as you are seeking the things that you're chasing, the healing that you're trying to experience, the passion that you're cultivating in your life. Don't play the comparison game in your journey, because it will not be a stepping stone. It will be a stumbling block. And so how do we avoid those?
There's really no winners in the comparison game. It's a losing effort. And what I mean by that is when we start to compare ourselves against other people and their achievements versus our achievements, we're forgetting one thing that's incredibly fundamental. I'm wired the way that I'm wired, with my gifts and talents and abilities and my passion. And Steve, you're wired the way that you're wired. So you have some similar but different skill set than I do, and I have my skill set. And the lie that we believe is that we're both trying to achieve the exact same outcome with two different skill sets. And so what the comparison trap does is when I look at you and man, Steve's killing it. Well, Steve's killing it because he was wired for things different than I was. He was wired better at football than I was. I mean, you're a better athlete than I ever was. I never played college ball, you know? And so think about it just in that context, right? So I feel sorry for myself because I don't get to play college football. I wasn't wired that way. So what happens is we get lost in this comparison trap, and we neglect why we were even made and how we were wired and the things that I'm really good at. And the secret really is, man, when I can start to look back inside, not look outside at everyone else, but look inside at the things that I'm gifted with, the talents that I have, the skills that I've developed, my passion that's inside of me, it all mixes together in this recipe for something great. But that something great is cut for me, not for you. But when I start to look outside at the great things that you're achieving, or the great things we see on social media or that other people are doing, you know, they have a different recipe. And so it's a no-win situation. Does that mean you can't be successful because we have a different skill set and you and I can't be successful? We can't chase the same thing? Absolutely not. But it's all about how we see it. It's all about how we look at it. And I think the real tragedy here is when you get stuck in a place in life and you get frustrated because what you're really upset about is not that you haven't been successful, or not that you haven't reached the pinnacle, or not that you aren't whatever you want to be. What you're really upset about is, man, why wasn't I gifted that way? Mm-hmm. Why wasn't I given that ability? Why wasn't I, created to do that? And so what we don't want is to get locked into that, because that can last a lifetime of being frustrated. Meanwhile, your purpose is running by you, and all these opportunities to impact people and be significant is running by you because you're on the side of the road, basically with your thumb in your mouth, because you didn't get to be whatever it is you wanted to be.
Yeah, I totally agree. And you said something there about it's a lifetime. Look, the reason we're bringing this up, because what we see and what we know in our own lives and just through observation is this comparison game. It's like a snowball. It's a snow, and if you're not careful, you're comparing. You're going to find yourself, your whole life is going to be consumed by not measuring up, not enough, and that's where a lot of times we really find ourselves in an unhealthy place. It wasn't stemmed from an addiction or from unhealthy behavior or from poor choices. We look up and we find ourselves in the most unhealthy place we've ever been, and it all started with comparison. And now we are mentally unhealthy. We've become physically unhealthy. We're uninspired. We give up, and we find ourselves just sitting idle on a couch, figuratively, and we're not chasing the greatness that we were created for. If anything, we're actually going in the opposite direction, and you find yourself in a really bad place. And so it's as innocent as it seems, and as people think, drug addiction's hardcore, or porn addiction, hardcore. this is just as dangerous as those things. You can spiral out of control just as easily as a simple comparison of what everybody else around you, what it seems like. Let me add that. What it seems like everyone else around you is doing and you're not. And you have to fight that urge. You have to fight that urge. And you alluded to this, Brandon, and we think one of the main ways to do that is focus on your lane. Focus on your talents and abilities. What are you good at? What are you achieving? What are you pursuing? Focus on that thing, not what everybody else is doing. And I think it'll help. I really do.
So here's my takeaway for the week, and my challenge really, if you're listening to this, whether you will raise your hand and say, I'm struggling with comparison, or whether it's a subtle thing in your life, this is an all play, everybody in on this. This week, for the next 7 days, try to work this exercise. It takes 10 seconds. Before you go to bed, when you lay down, before you shut it down, and just come up with 3 things that you are thankful for that happened that day. Find 3 things. Even if you have the worst day, I bet you can find 3 things that you're grateful for. Because if we start to develop this attitude of being appreciative, to have gratefulness for the things that we do have, we develop a way more healthy perspective, even about the things that we don't. And they become less like a weight that hangs around our neck. Man, I don't have it. I don't got it. I can't get it. No, you can get it, but you won't ever get it if your attitude is diseased, right? So for the next 7 days, when you end the day, come up with 3 things, even write them down. If you write them down, they become more impactful, but at least come up with 3 things that you're thankful for, you're grateful for in the last 24 hours, and see if it doesn't start to change your perspective.
Absolutely. And I'll add to that, Brandon. I think that's great, but I want to add 3 more things. So we're looking at 6 things. I want you to also, because this is huge, I practice this all the time, and I had to force myself to do this because I was not celebrating the wins. I was going and going and going and going and going and going. I was winning, but I was going and going and going. I wasn't stopped celebrating wins. So when you stop tonight and you think about those three things that you're thankful for, also think about 3 wins that you had that day. Celebrate your wins, because those wins are leading you in that direction. And those things that you're most thankful for, they are going to be feeding your pursuit. Your wins are indicating that you're heading in the right direction. And the things that you are thankful for continue to feed you, to push you towards the things that you're chasing. So this week's challenge, guys, 6 things every night, 7 days. When you stop your day, think about 3 things you're thankful for. Think about 3 wins you had that day, whatever they are. Just think about it.
Small or large.
Small or large, whatever. You have 3 wins every day. Think about it. And I think you'll look up, and I know you'll look up, and you'll find yourself pushing towards a healthier daily living, a healthier daily pursuit of these things that we talk about you're chasing, this greatness you're chasing, this fulfillment you're chasing. You're not gonna get there overnight, guys, and that's what we're going to continue to do in this Men Who Matter series, is helping you think about things that are going to get you there. And we think not playing the comparison game is going to be a huge win to your pursuit. And hopefully you'll find it very helpful as well.
Remember, this week we're giving away the Ultimate Turkey Hunters Package from Hunter Specialties, the Undertaker Turkey Vest, the Sling Blade Box Call, and the Cookie Cutter Pan Call. All you have to do to be entered to win is to subscribe to the podcast and leave us a review. That's where we're going to know who's in the drawing or not. So you got to leave the review, and you got to get that in by next Monday. And then we're going to have a drawing, and we're going to have this gear in your hands first week of April so you can get in the woods and get after them.
Good stuff, man. So until next time, hopefully you guys found it helpful today, not too heavy, but look, it's the reality of the things you're going to face in your pursuit, and we're going to try to tackle them week in and week out. You guys have a great week. We can't wait to get back with you again next week. And until then, remember, you are men who matter.